Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MLB After Hours Podcast. It is not the only baseball podcast, but it is the only one we're recording right now, and we thank you for listening. With me today, we have Connor, a resident Cubs fan, DOSBox Falco, our resident Indians fan, Hero Brian, a resident Cardinals fan, Marlins man John, and Turtle Man, an Astros fan. Thank you, Tony, for recording, and thank you for electing me to host this episode. Um, Before we begin and get into the baseball games, I just wanted to say something brief about the postponed games, the protest. It would feel weird to not address it. There have been some heated conversations, some warnings not to get too political in some of the conversations we have been in. I don't think I fought too much with anyone here about it. Truth is, we agree more than we have differing opinions. We all love baseball. We love what baseball does in our lives, and we want to watch as much of it as life allows, especially when it's safe and appropriate to do so. For a lot of people, sports really is an escape from everything else going on in life. And sometimes, like this week, that can't be separated so easily. Sometimes the science says we can't play right now. Sometimes players in their hearts say we can't play right now. So I just hope Major League Baseball makes the right decisions about the cultural relevance of sports and its position. And I hope the players feel that they're making the right decision and accomplishing what they want with their life, with baseball in that context. And I am glad that we get to keep watching sports. So let's see. We are going to start with the topic of 7-inning games. I think everyone has some opinions about that. I think it makes sense that this year baseball is trying lots of new things. And this was an idea that had been discussed, the 7-inning doubleheaders. And I think it was a week or so into the season, they realized, well, we have these COVID problems, we have these weather problems. We're going to need more 7-inning games than more doubleheaders than we thought, and we're going to accomplish it with 7-inning games. So, I mean, do we like them? Do we not? What do they accomplish? There's also some talk about a future where games are 7 innings. Baseball has looked at various changes that can be made to keep games shorter, and that would be an extreme change of some people's opinion. Connor, what do you think? How would you feel if there was a whole season of 7-inning baseball games? If this was the end of the 9-inning baseball game in 2020 and next year, all games are 7 innings.
All right. Well, to start off, I think there's not much practicality to it, at least in the near future, because there are so many players in these team systems that are set to be relievers in the bullpen, and if the games were 7 innings, you would need fewer relievers, and it would change the entire strategy of how you draft players, how you trade for players, and it would be completely unfair to institute it soon. It would also take away probably, maybe hundreds of jobs from minor league baseball players and jobs from major league players. You'd have probably smaller rosters. So I think not only is it more enjoyable to watch 9-inning games, it's kind of insensitive to players to suggest that you want 7-inning games, because you're going to have players. I mean, the salaries are already low enough for minor league players. It'd be even worse if you just took them out of a job completely. So that'd be my thought.
All right. Yeah, DOSBox, what do you think?
I think it's completely ridiculous. If they go to 7 innings, it's stupid. I'm not a big fan, especially because, then the reliever market just doesn't exist anymore. Then you're just trying to build up big starters, right? Because, there you go, Hero Run. You basically just want to build up big starters at that point, because you look at, I'm going to mention the Indians a lot because I know them a lot. The Indians, we could trade away half of our relievers easily if it was a 7-inning game. And we wouldn't have to re-sign more, and we could put more money to the bats, and we would have this, massive starting pitching empire. Hell, you might not, or you look at it the other way. Suddenly, starting pitchers mean about as much, or like only double a reliever in terms of time. Like, you could do it so starters only go 4 innings, and then they come back like every 3 days instead of every 5, right? Or whatever.
Sure.
Which I don't like either. I think the dynamics of baseball and how rosters are set up uh, are right, and that's how they're supposed to be set up. Limiting innings, except in doubleheaders, is ridiculous. I like it for doubleheaders, especially this season, because you want to limit injuries. That's majorly why it's been put in. It's not because of time; it's because they don't want people to go ragged.
Well, so let's talk about time though, because that's been a real issue in Major League Baseball, right? The length
sure.
of games is clearly something that the league is struggling to address. Like, why not have a 7-inning game?
Just all the logistics I talked about. Pitching and hitting and how lineups work. It's just it doesn't work the same, and it doesn't work right. It just doesn't work right. It just doesn't work. Not yet. You would need to make lots of decisions. This would need to be something that everyone mulled over for multiple years, and rosters would have to be moved, changed, and switched around. And I feel like if you're trying to do that instantly, if we're trying to do that next year, which I think is ridiculous, that is way too early. But if we're trying to do it next year, this is Rob Manfred, you have to make some sort of arbitrary rule set to like limit starters or make relievers go longer. And either way, the game suffers for that.
Sure.
And
there's certainly going to be that was more hypothetical, but the collective bargaining agreement expires after next season, and there definitely will be some new impositions. They definitely do need to address whether it's pace of play or new rules, and there's going to be something. I don't know if we'll end up with a pitch clock. I don't know if the union will fight back against that, but we're probably looking at some drastic changes after 2021 season, and I think 7 innings is an extreme measure. Another thing, right? It will make it impossible to reach a lot of records. But a lot of records, like pitching records, no one's going to break records from the 80s when guys were more commonly starting on 3 days rest. No one's doing that now. Now you have guys getting shut down hard at 180 innings and all this stuff. Like, a lot of records are unattainable anyway. So I don't know.
I think that has less to do with it than just the flow of the game that's been established for over 100 years. You know, like we've had it 9-inning games. It's been like that since the turn of the millennium, the last millennium, 1900. So I see no reason to change it other than in a big panic to try and get more ratings.
Yeah. Also, I think the whole pace of play thing, I'm not sure if there's that many people that are complaining. Baseball, it's just it goes too long. The games, I'm getting too much baseball. I don't think there are that many people. I'm sure that there are some people that think the games are a little too long, but I don't think those people are going to be fans anyway.
Yeah, I think it mostly has to do with trying to reach out to an audience that doesn't actually watch baseball.
That's exactly right.
I don't know. I find the games really long, and I don't know if it's in part because the fans aren't there, but games these seasons seem to drag. And the Mets and Yankees today even played a 7-inning. I don't know how long the second one went. The first one didn't even reach the end of 7 innings until 3 hours. You're
right. But then again, if you look back at that, wasn't that a great game? Doesn't everyone agree that was a great game to watch? Like, the Yankees had a great comeback. I mean, what's wrong with long games? A lot of times they're the classic ones.
That is true. Yeah.
I agree.
It doesn't necessarily make it a bad game. However, it's like, if a movie is 3.5 hours, does it make it a better movie? Not necessarily. And for me,
right.
I think it's about the pace. Am I mad that I'm watching a 3.5 hour game? No, but I'm mad that it really drags. And I think one of the biggest things, I would like to see a pitch clock. I would like to see umpires tell batters, stay in the box, get back in the box. If you just took a ball, you do not need to readjust your gloves.
I wouldn't say you can't force that. There's absolutely no way you can force that because the union's gonna get on. Get on the MLB if they're gonna try that.
It's already a rule.
Yeah,
the umpires just have to enforce it, though. I mean, like, It's already there.
Agreed.
Yeah, but you can't enforce it. You can't be strict hard about it because no one is going to let that slide. No one.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to outrage about it. I think about game striking, I think it has a lot to do, and maybe we talk about this a little later or maybe now. Games strike a lot because it's either really good pitching or really bad pitching, and really good offense or really bad offense. So I don't know. It hurts a bit to watch games that are like that.
Now, I kind of want to bring something with the whole pace of play. So, there was a report I read a couple days ago that said, the average MLB fan is about, in its mid 50s, and I'm asking myself, changing the innings to 7, let's say, would it attract the younger audience, or would it just not really do much? I mean, I'm a traditionalist myself. I love the 9 innings, but what do you guys think?
Um, it's less about how long the games are, and it's more about the amount of time that's like downtime that is spent on the field. So I don't really think the length of the game in terms of innings is what's gonna attract more people. I just think maybe they should add a pitch clock or something, but I don't think shortening games.
People watch back-to-back 3-hour NFL games every Sunday for 17 weeks. Like, a 3-hour game is not the problem. And actually, Major League Baseball, if you add up the seconds, of action that occurs on the field, has more time that the ball is in play than an NFL game. So I think they just have a marketing problem, man.
I agree.
That's definitely part of it. You make a good point, right? The SEC games are some of the most popular college football games, and some of those games take 4 hours. So it's not that people aren't willing to devote 4 hours when it's worth something they feel is worth watching. It's the feeling that you get when watching that this is a lot of wasted time here. I do enjoy the 7-inning games in doubleheaders. There's a certain urgency that you get. However, I think one of the most important things and one of the most important arguments against the change is that, and Doc Fox implied this in a way, going through the order 3 times is important. And yes, a lot of times it's the 5th and 6th inning where pitchers get in trouble, and that is dramatic and time consuming. And if you may not be facing a full 3 times through the order, you may get more aggressive bullpen use. You may not actually be eliminating reliever jobs. You may be getting more aggressive pitching changes, and pitching changes take time. And I don't know that you would cut off, exactly 77% of the game or have a 77% shorter broadcast. So I think it is messy, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't mind it this season logistically that they're doing it, but I don't really think that it would be a great product.
I want to say one more thing about somebody brought up the marketing problem that the MLB has. I think it's proof that the MLB has a marketing problem when Mike Trout is not only the best player in baseball today, he's one of the best of all times. And I don't think I know anyone personally. None of my friends know him. No one. If you just ask people around the streets, no one knows who Mike Trout is. And it angers me as a baseball fan because he is so dominant and he's just so good, and no one knows who he is. You can tell, and I think part of that problem. I mean, you look at networks like ESPN, they don't show baseball ever. They'll never talk about Mike Trout, but a lot of that's on the MLB too.
Yeah, and so we are getting pretty far from the 7-inning topic. However, I would like to introduce a late joining guest, Gage, our resident Royals fan. Gage, we have been talking about the 7-inning game, and I think you've gotten to catch some of the conversation. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I think the length of the games don't matter at all. It's just the terrible marketing that the MLB has.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with that at that standpoint. I thought you were going to go all moral relativist in terms of innings. I was about to throw hands, but yes, I do agree. It has a lot to do with marketing, and I think the MLB are just trying to, go around a problem in the wrong way.
I enjoy watching football because of the fact that it's presented so well. I'll watch a football game for 5 hours if I have to, but I won't watch a baseball game. because it's just not as. I love baseball, but it's not entertaining to go for that far into a game.
Yeah, and I think all entertainment now has to reckon with being a second screen. Even Netflix has to produce content knowing that people are looking at their phone. And I do like having a baseball game on, and sometimes I have music on, or sometimes I'm playing Switch or texting people. It is a good background activity, so I don't think it's a problem that it's 4 hours. It's like, are they giving me something that is worth looking at, especially compared to the other screen that I'm working on?
Right, and a sport like hockey where you see action happening like literally every second compared to baseball where you'd get one 3-2 count, and then you get a ground ball, and then you get casually a double here and there. The pacing is a little slower, but to me, it really doesn't matter. It's just part of the game, and I think as a traditionalist, I really love just that ambience. It's just not always straight to the point, straight to the point. Like it has its slows, like its slow points, and it has its really fast parts of the game. And I think that it brings hype at points, especially in that Mets Yankees game earlier today. Things like that is what just makes me a bigger baseball fan than really any other sport.
100%
Yeah,
agree.
and thank you for bringing up the Mets Yankees game. We are going to talk about the Subway Series next. There were five games in the
Oh
Bronx
boy.
in 3 days. It has been a whirlwind of a few days for Mets fans. There was Thursday's public relations embarrassment. If the Mets probably had the greatest Friday in history as far as fans recall, with 2 wins. And we found out late that night that Steve Cohen, a billionaire hedge fund owner, was going to become the new owner of the team. We would finally get rid of Will Pons and all of the messes that they brought to the Mets.
Hopefully
Friday,
for real this time.
yeah, Friday night games, or Friday afternoon and Friday night, were certainly entertaining. The Mets hit a number of home runs. Dom Smith showed that he's the kind of guy who's built to hit it out of center right, just in parks like Yankee Stadium and Fenway. I would personally love to watch some of these guys play in easy mode in Yankee Stadium every night, but that is not. Other than the doubleheader, they are not the home team in the Bronx all that often. Friday night, that marked a 7-game losing streak for the Yankees. They went into Saturday looking to avoid their first 8-game losing streak since I think it was 1994 or 1995. And then it ended in dramatic fashion, ugly for Mets fans. Dylan Betances, a former Yankee himself, lost yesterday's game with a wild pitch, yesterday being the only 9-inning game in the Subway Series. Today we had a brutally long doubleheader, as I said, go to extra innings, extra being the 8th. And after those events unfolded, I could not bring myself to watch Game 2 personally. All I know is that Gary Sanchez hit a grand slam in the top of the 8th when the Yankees were the away team. So
Yes.
we could say the Yankees swept the doubleheader. They won 3 out of 5. These were all very momentous games, games that will be seared into Mets fans' memories. They can't just lose a game. They lose in such epic fashion that everyone is talking about it. And I know New York is going to remember this for quite some time.
Forever.
I don't know. I don't know how many people outside of New York care. So, Connor, did you get to check out any of these games highlights? What did you think of the Subway Series?
Oh yeah, I watched Ahmed Rosario walk off at Yankee Stadium. I watched Gary Sanchez's grand slam just a little bit ago, and I think it's pretty obvious that the Mets need some pitching at this deadline. Their offense actually has been pretty good. Their team batting average is 265, and their OPS 790. They have guys like Dom Smith with an OPS of 1122. He's doing really good this year after struggling in his first few years. And then JD Davis, even though he's a liability out there on defense, he's hitting pretty well. And Robinson Cano has been stepping it up big time. So I think at the deadline, if they get some bullpen help, then they'd probably have a chance to pass up the Marlins or the Phillies, depending on who does good in the coming weeks, and they could easily make the playoffs as the second team in the NL East.
I saw something on Twitter as I was scrolling through one of the accounts that's trying to chronicle the deadline, that the Mets are looking for, quote, starters, bullpen help, and a catcher all in 24 hours, which is a lot to go for when it's not the off season. That's like an off-season haul for most teams. So I don't know exactly what they're doing. They think they're competitive, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, Edwin Diaz, of course, blew the first game, and his numbers don't look that bad, but when he gives up runs, it's the ones that matter, and he had some what they believe to be mechanical struggles last season. I don't know what it is this season, but he's still doing it. He's still getting blown saves and losses, and they are clearly not. The Mets are clearly not as good as the Braves. The Braves are head and shoulders above anyone in the East. They're up, 11-8 now. They had started with a 10-run second inning, if anyone was watching that. It is not a nice place to be, Citizens Bank Park, if you're a pitcher giving up fly balls. And so that was one of those time-consuming innings over there. But yeah, as for the Mets, I'm a little worried with the change in ownership, because Brody Van Wagenen's got to be looking at it saying, I got to prove why I should still have a job with the change in ownership. I got to show him next year. And anyone can be a playoff contender in this wacky season with 8 games. So I don't know. He could be doing something dramatic, and I just hope he's not giving away the future. But I do think the Mets will be buyers. So, Dot Fox, that was your thoughts on the Subway Series, Gage. Did you check out the battle between the Bronx and Queens?
No, I did not. I just heard that it was an insanely fun series to watch.
It was insanely fun.
Unless you're a Mets fan.
It's always very fun to see the Mets collapse, as a former Mets fan.
The Mets had their moments this weekend. They were just all Friday. So
I do want to ask you, Benny. You're the Mets fan here.
Mhm.
So, as a Marlins fan, we played each other a couple days ago, and we had that day where the players got together, protested, and they didn't play. They had that little incident with Brody. What's your take on that? Like, did you watch it, or?
I watched the video, and I think something interesting in it is so as everyone may know, he was blaming Rob Manfred for the idea of postponing the game by an hour and not actually not actually playing it, and saying that Rob Manfred was not suited for the leadership role. And as it turned out, that idea was actually Jeff Wilpon's boneheaded idea, and it was a mess. And apparently, I have to believe that someone set up that stream on purpose, but it was just caught by some guy on Twitter. It was like, hey, why are the Mets live on MLB.com right now? And they were not actually having a press conference. So it was a mess. And then what the players did, I thought it was respectful, of Jackie Robinson, of all that they were trying to do. I liked it. And it turns out, again, the crazy thing is everyone believed what Brody said would be true. That's the kind of thing that Rob Manfred would do. Oh, yeah, sure. It makes sense. No one questioned it. No one said, why would Rob Manfred come up with such a crazy idea? Why is Rob, everyone agrees his leadership is bad. So his information wasn't accurate, but the sentiment was completely true on the leadership from the commissioner. No one was happy with him, and that was the first moment I felt that Brody was likable. So anyway, and then and then the ownership had to make it ugly after the fact with their statements slamming Brody and spelling his name wrong, considering they've employed him for 2 years and have worked with him when he was an agent for some of their employees for 10 years or something. It was clearly done as an insult and it was nutty. We do have a new guest, a resident Mariners fan, Pure Organic. Pure Organic, did you get to check out any of the Subway Series action?
They're deafened. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
That's right.
Oh,
I do see
man.
that now. All right. Any other thoughts on the Mets or Yankees at this point? I also, we did chat about this quite a bit. I don't know who was in the chat. Gary Sanchez had so many, they weren't all necessarily pass balls, but like he calls for balls in the dirt and then is shocked when they end up there. And so it was ugly catching on both sides. Mets rookie Ali Sanchez was about the only good catcher. So when you mentioned the Mets are looking for catching, yeah, it would be nice to have a reliable everyday catcher who hits well. So moving on from the Subway Series.
I don't know if there were any other topics in terms of individual games today that were really too interesting. The Subway
Mhm.
Series was very funny. I like that one a lot.
There was, yeah. It
But
was
I
memorable.
think the only other one that's of note is that the Twins are not guaranteed a playoff spot in their slot right now. The Twins are now third.
Yeah, we can move to
In
the
the
AL
Central Division.
Central.
I think
Twins, Indians, and White Sox.
I think the AL Central looking real interesting. We're tied at first place with the White Sox and the Indians. Third place is Twins, which I think no one would have expected this far into the season. And then the Tigers and Royals, whatever.
We don't talk about it.
Who cares about those two?
The Royals are irrelevant. The Tigers have always been irrelevant. Oh well.
Tigers are like unironically almost relevant.
Tigers are up to 500. I don't know if they'll be
Wait,
looking to make moves. I doubt
Oh
it.
my God, they're up to 500.
The
Wow.
Tigers
They
are
are,
Up
actually
to
yeah.
500, they're like 2.5 out from the second wild card spot.
That's
They're
that's
chasing
Yeah.
the
Be a
Blue
contender.
Jays.
the
I think last week
Tigers.
when we did this, the Twins were in first, and we kind of doubted whether they would stay there. The White Sox recently traded for Jared Dyson. It's apparent that they are looking to compete this year. They had talked about trading for Mike Clevenger from the Indians, who clearly has had his relationship with that organization soured. And I think it would be best for the both of them that he departs there after his whole going out and
Yeah, the
enjoying
Indians
himself.
trade is pretty interesting right now because who knows what's getting moved and when,
Mhm.
and in terms of that, because Plesac, we want to move him, but it's hard.
Mhm.
You don't know. And then Clevenger, we can move, and we probably will. It's probably what's going to happen. Going to move Clevenger. We got. This is like the biggest trade of the deadline, so I think we can just talk about this. We have the Padres, who obviously want him. The White Sox, which are a very interesting team to pull for him, but they just lost Gio, so it makes sense.
Mhm.
And then
What?
we have. Sorry? Who said what?
Oh, I just didn't know that they lost Gio.
They did lose Gio. I think he's on the 10-day.
Yeah, and he did throw a no hitter on, was it Wednesday? That was a great showing. It's good that they
Giolito.
had
That was
it,
a beautiful show.
I was talking Gio Gonzalez.
Oh yeah. I'm
Gio
sorry.
Gonzalez is out. Lucas Giolito is still fine.
Oh okay.
Lucas Giolito is cool. But no, Gio Gonzalez is gone, and they want another pitcher. They want to make a good run. They think they have the offense, and they're willing to give us offense. I don't know. That trade's weird. I don't think it's happening.
You know, as
Yeah, it
far
would
as
be odd. It would be odd.
Sir,
to see
Connor,
Clevenger go into the
go
division.
ahead.
well, as far as Clevenger goes, I think I didn't think he was going to get traded, but it looks like the Padres are really aggressive this deadline, and the Braves, I think, need a starting pitcher, and Tommy Malone did horrible for them today, so I don't think he's the answer. And then the thing with Jonathan Scope on the Tigers, I think everyone thought he was going to get traded, and he probably still will. But like, let's say that the Tigers win a few more, like all of a sudden they're in playoff contention, and why would they trade away Jonathan Scope if they're in playoff contention? So I think the Tigers, it's a tough decision for them. Do we trade Jonathan Scope, give up in the season, or do
I
we
just have
keep trying?
Can the can there be 4 teams from the AL Central to make the playoffs? Or
Yes,
does
there
it have
can.
to be-
There can be
so
4.
Yeah.
There's no reason there can't. However, they would have to be beating up on their interleague games because I'm not sure how much mathematically you can do just beating up on the Royals, right?
Right.
Hey,
Someone in another
They
division is
basically
going
have to destroy the
I'm
Royals
sorry.
and Pirates.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Gage. The Royals aren't good. I
at
don't know
least
how to
I'm
spin
not a
it any other
Pirates
way.
fan.
At least, Jesus.
Yeah,
Tigers
the
are
Royals
Tigers
suck.
are potentially in contention, but who
Hmm.
knows about that? Who knows what they're trading and when and how? Um,
The Tigers are in
who
a very
knows?
spot
Yeah.
deadline. They don't really have it. Now,
It's kind of like the Orioles.
depending on what they do, they could either move up or they could for like a draft spot. Actually, they
Mhm.
could
What was it?
definitely do that.
2015 or 2014 ALDS was Tigers versus Orioles, and now they're in the exact same position.
Well,
They're
I
like,
think the Orioles they already show that they're not trying to contend this year by trading away Michael Givens to the Rockies.
yeah,
The
but they're
Tigers
they're still like
caught
kind
in
of doing
that
stuff.
position, though.
Kind of.
And
They're
the
being
Orioles, yeah.
relevant by not being relevant.
The Orioles, by the way, lost by 2 walk-offs in the series against the Blue Jays this weekend. This weekend series against the Blue Jays was huge for the Orioles, and I think they got swept. So
Yep. And the Blue Jays now pretty comfortably sitting in the first wild card spot.
actually the second.
Well,
Are they in
second,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, the Blue
Yeah.
Jays and Yankees
Sorry.
are about the same now. I know some of my Blue Jays fan friends were very upset that the Mets managed to not beat the Yankees for them. The Blue Jays won in dramatic fashion today. Teoscar had a game-winning RBI single. He really loves that park in Buffalo. So shall we move back to the AL East? What do we think? The Rays are now pulling away 4.5 up on the Yankees and Blue Jays, and they are going into the Bronx. Imagine if they could sweep the Yankees at 7 games this late into the season. We are
Jesus.
now
That would
at about
be crazy because
that would be.
they're almost mathematically like guaranteed a playoff spot at that point. If they're 7 games ahead with like 40 games, they're getting close to mathematically being guaranteed.
Sure. So what do we think with the Rays out in front of the Blue Jays and the Yankees right now? Where do we think that will shake out? And also, we should probably note the Blue Jays trades, right? They made a couple of separate trades with the Mariners. They picked up Vogelback, who should help out first base and DH, and is
For
another
cash
large.
considerations, and then we
Yeah.
also traded Walker over
Yeah, Taiwan Walker went to the
Taiwan
Blue
Walker.
Jays as well.
Yeah.
for a
Yep.
player not to
clearly,
be named.
And like, yeah, who
Won't be
knows?
named.
I think the Rays and A's are 2 interesting teams in that they kind of, I mean, they were the 2 wildcard teams last year, and this year they got off to real good starts, but the Astros and Yankees always seem to find a way to win games and somehow come out. I think, 2018 and 19, the Athletics were winning the division. I believe they were ahead, and the Astros came back at the end of the year, and they just swept the doubleheader against the A's this weekend. So I'm looking. I think that the Astros might win the West, and I think the Yankees might win the East as well, because especially if they get Judge back or some of the other injuries, and if they trade, I think they might trade for someone like Mike Minor. Then
Yeah.
I think they could easily,
Yeah,
because they
there are
have
talks
some
about
games left. Yeah,
there was talks about Mike Minor. There's also a mystery team for Clevenger.
Mhm.
People have said could be the Yankees, and maybe others. People who need SP help.
Yeah, Mike
But,
Minor just had a great outing against the Dodgers the other day, so I'm sure a lot of teams feel high on him. Lance Lynn, I think, has struggled a bit, but those are 2 of the potential Rangers trades. And I believe, Connor, you had said something about you think Joey Gallo might be traded. What do you expect to see the Rangers giving up?
Oh, honestly, I think the Rangers should sell off a lot, because if you think about it, so first of all, Mike Minor, he's in a contract year. So why would they keep him for the rest of this year if they're basically not going to make the playoffs no matter what? They got to get something out of him. So they got to trade Mike Minor. Lance Lynn, his contract expires next year. I definitely could see them trading him, because they're probably not going to compete next year. And then Joey Gallo, I I don't think they should trade him because that would be selling low because he's not performing too well. Then again, the Rays do have interest in him, and they would be buying low, which would be advantageous to them. So I could see that, but I think another guy, Shin-Soo Choo, will definitely get traded. He's in a contract year. He could go to the Indians. They need an outfield bat. Maybe even the Cardinals now that they have the DH. And then I think Nick Goody in the bullpen, he could get traded to a team like the Mets or the Rockies that need bullpen help. I think the Rangers should sell off almost everyone that they can.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if Joey Gallo will go anywhere. Like I said, I think he's hitting 183 or something. He's always struck me as an Adam Dunn type hitter. Either he strikes out or he hits home runs, and he's not doing so much hitting lately. But I would not be surprised to see the Rays try to shore up a little bit, and that would be interesting. Any other moves in the West? We should probably talk about the A's and the Angels. Tommy La Stella is now on the Oakland A's, and they have a COVID issue there in Oakland. So I think he played one game there. Thoughts on the Oakland Athletics right now?
I think the trade for Tommy La Stella was definitely like won by the Athletics. I think the Angels could have got maybe a little bit more than Franklin Barreto just for Tommy La Stella. And I think that the trade it was pretty bad for the Angels, and if you're a fan of the Angels, you have to be very disappointed with the team. They have a really stacked lineup. They have a lot of good hitters. Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, and they still can't win games, and it has to be frustrating if you're a fan and you got your hopes up for this season.
I
And
have
then
to
your
say,
front office is just pulling off moves like that.
I don't know if that was such a bad trade for the Angels because Tommy La Stella, his contract expired this year. So I mean, if they're not going to compete this year, which they're not, I don't see why not sell him off for something. And Franklin Barreto is an MLB ready middle infielder that has control. And even if he doesn't pan out, at least they're not keeping La Stella on the team for the rest of the year, not getting anything for him. So I don't think it was as bad as people think.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for the Angels, they are sellers once again. They're basement dwellers. They are actually. I saw the other day they've given the most $100 million plus contract in the last decade with six. This like the 10th most expensive contract they've ever given was Vlad Guerrero at $70 million. So they've spent a lot of money and not really accomplished a lot. Like we said, Mike Trout is someone who would not be recognized walking in Midtown Manhattan. And that part of that lack of star power is certainly that the Angels just aren't a relevant team. However, Mike Trout did break out of his slump. He has had quite a month. I think it was about a month ago that his first child was born. So congratulations to him for that. He came back with a couple of huge hits. I think he had a game-winning RBI single in his first or second game back, and people were talking about the dad energy kind of stuff. He slowed down quite a bit after that, but he had a 6 RBI game the other day. He leads the MLB with 32 RBI, which certainly is a situational statistic, doesn't necessarily say anything. Will the best player in baseball this generation lead the stat category in the 60-game season? What do you guys think about what Mike Trout is accomplishing, will accomplish in a short season? And what would you like to see for, as I said, probably the best baseball player in a generation?
So something interesting about Mike Trout is his splits this year, home and away. So he was in that huge slump, right? He was striking out just constantly in Houston. And then I looked at his home and away splits. And this year at home, he has 7 homers, 16 RBIs. He's batting .383 with a 1309 OPS. And on the road, he's got 5 homers, 16 RBIs. He's batting .214 with a 780 OPS and 24 strikeouts, which is more than double what he has at home. So I don't know exactly what's going on there because his career splits are about even home and away. So, but something is definitely working for him more at home than on the road. It might just be the conditions, and sometimes guys just see the ball better because the batter's eye or whatever. But I mean, I guess if you're an Angels fan, anytime you're at home, I guess you can look forward to Trout hitting well. The other thing I want to say about Mike Trout is that I check on his baseball savant numbers every week, and every time I see it, outfield his outfield jump metric and the outs above average are bottom 10% in the league, and he's just not a good defensive center fielder anymore. And I think it's about time that they move him to left or even DH if they can get Shohei to play first or something, and move Brian Goodwin to center. I said that last week, might even said it the week before. It's costing them too much to have Trout in center.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Although I've noticed a lot of players who are not necessarily great outfielders are struggling with their routes and with their positioning this season. I don't know if that's they're not getting the first step, but there's a lot of misplayed balls off the wall in center field. But what does everyone else think about what Mike Trout's doing this season and how he'll play? I mean,
I think Trout he's been up and down, kind of inconsistent, I think, but I think he's gonna get going eventually. He still has great numbers on the year. Obviously, he had the great stretch to start the season, and then he kind of cooled off a bit. And then lately, he's been hitting more. So I think he's gonna be Mike Trout. I know his defense, as Connor says, he's been a liability out there. I think even last year, Trout's defense was below average, and I would imagine the Angels are aware of this. But if he has to move over to like a corner outfield spot or something, I think if he has to do it, then he should do it.
Sure. All right,
Also-
so go on.
Also, the fans might be a factor into how balls are being misplayed, because I've noticed that also there's a ton of misplayed balls. That also could be because I watch the Mariners a lot and we're really bad, but I don't know. It's just that nothing's really been normal this year. I haven't seen really great fielding at all this year, actually.
Yeah, like I said, around the league, and I don't know if it's that they just didn't get enough practice in, or they had too much off time between when spring training was suspended in March and the return of the season in July. Right, they had a shortened, whatever you want to call it, summer training. But we can move on to another team that is underperforming, the defending national champions, the Washington Nationals. They are, I think the record is a little under 500 at this point, and there's talk of whether they should sell or try to figure out if they're going to contend. Like we said, a lot of the East does seem and has seemed for at least a year to be anyone's division. Juan Soto is playing out of his mind good since he returned from his COVID test situation. But they do have pitching problems, as we said last week. Strasburg is done. I think the Nationals probably shouldn't do anything drastic. Probably shouldn't be looking to sell. Focus on what kind of contract they're going for next year. You know what? If they trade for someone who is a trade and sign kind of situation, trade and extend, I think that would be all right for them. Anyone have any strong thoughts about the Nationals?
Yeah, I mean, the Nationals are sitting right now in dead last, 12-19. And, this happened last season. They were also pretty down there in 2019. And, look what happened to them a couple months later.
Mhm.
We see guys in the Nationals, especially me as a Marlins fan, we play these teams often. And you too, Benny, you're a Mets fan. We see this Nationals team over and over. And you kind of feel bad because a defending world championship team is not playing to their level. And and one of the reasons I do look at them that way is because they just have too many veterans. I think they gotta deal some, and I think they should really start a little trading process, and actually take advantage of the moment right now in the trade deadline and go for people like uh Alex Dickerson, probably Jacoby Jones from the Tigers, probably Whit Merrifield. You never know. Guys like
No.
those that are
I
middle aged, young, and could turn around the Nationals. I really do think they still have a chance. I think they
I
do.
disagree with you, John. I think the way the National League East is shaping out, we've seen the Phillies, they're on the rise currently. I think the Nationals shouldn't be buying at the deadline, or just they should just maybe trade away a few pieces, like maybe Asdrubal Cabrera or Starlin Castro.
Right.
I um I don't really see the Nationals contending this year, especially because it's 60 games. The type of comeback that they had a slow start last year. It's really not possible in a 60-game season.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with both of you. I actually do think the Nationals have a chance, mostly because their starting pitching has been so bad this year that honestly it can't get much worse. It has to turn around, and if it does, then their hitting should be there. And the Nationals, I mean, they did this last year, and then they won the World Series. So I just kind of have faith in them, and I think Juan Soto, honestly, MVP candidate.
Monster.
So he could just carry the team into that 2 spot in the division, because it's really anyone's spot. They're only a few games back of it. And then the other thing is that I agree with Hero that they should trade someone like Asdrubal Cabrera, because look, they don't need Asdrubal Cabrera. They have Howie Kendrick, Starlin Castro, Carter Kieboom. He should be playing more. Why would they need Asdrubal Cabrera? They should trade him. I think the Brewers could get Asdrubal Cabrera. They need a third baseman / second baseman or whatever, an infielder. I think you need to trade him, get something for him, because they don't need him. But they also shouldn't give up on the season.
Yep. And rounding out the East, the Marlins are now, I think, about a game and a half up on the Mets, although mathematically that's a little fuzzy because the Marlins are still working on making up some of those games they haven't played. John, I do want you to get your input on the state of the Marlins, especially the last week or so.
Yeah. Right now the team is not really playing to their ability, as I'd say 2 weeks ago. This was a team that was scoring a lot of runs, and to this day, we haven't really seen much of these. Today we did, actually, as a matter of fact. Team was down 12-1 to the Tampa Bay Rays, and their pitching staff, probably the best in baseball. They had scored 7 runs, and one of the players I want to point out is Lewis Brinson. Yeah, you heard me, Lewis Brinson, a guy who hasn't really shown his potential since that trade for Yelich 3 years ago. This is a guy who's turning things around. He's hitting the ball well. He's playing great defense, and I want to see more from the guy. I think the Marlins really need to make some pieces. I mean, need to trade some pieces this deadline. Probably deal and get some relief pitchers and get some power hitters, and probably maybe things will turn around for them.
Yes. So, as I said, I do think that there's no bad teams in the NL East. Someone's got to be at the bottom. Right now, it is the Nationals. Moving on to the NL Central, a little less of a top-heavy division. Cubs are the only team above 500 right now. The Cardinals, of course, had quite an extended period off. They are 12-13, so they may make up some ground. And as far as win percentage, they're ahead of the Brewers right now. Connor, we're going to go to you first. What do you think of what the Cubs are doing? 6 games over 500. If they want to contend further, it does seem like they're on a walk to a playoff position and probably winning the division, but they may need some help. What do you think? What would you like to see them pick up?
All right. Well, their rotation looks like it's in pretty good shape. I mean, they have Chatwood and Quintana that could both start games, and they have them paired up as like one starting pitcher basically. So that's probably fine. They got Jose Martinez from the Rays, and he's a lefty crusher, and that's exactly what they need because they're not hitting lefties well. So that looks good. I think they could use a reliever, preferably a lefty, because Kyle Ryan's not really cutting it right now. So I would like to see Tony Watson from the Giants. That would be nice. I think if they traded away Albert Almora, that'd be cool because he's not really doing anything for the Cubs, and the Giants want an outfielder. I think it's a good match. Also, I do want to mention a couple Cubs guys. Okay, today, the Cubs were the first team ever to have their 3 outfielders each hit 2 home runs in one game. That was Ian Happ, Kyle Schwarber, and Jason Hayward. Jason Hayward, by the way, he hit 2 home runs today, and he's got his OPS over 900, and his expected batting average is 301 right now, which is like top 10% in the league. So I think that contract's starting to look better. Yu Darvish's contract is starting to look better. His numbers are really good. He's a Cy Young candidate, and there's a little less drama this year as a Cubs fan with the other teams in the division. So I guess it's easy to think, okay, well, we're going to win the division, but then you still need trades to help you out in the playoffs. So I'd look for that.
For sure. Hero, what do you think about the Cardinals? Are they a 500 team? Are they better than that in their heart and soul? Are they going to be looking to make some moves as they try and pick up some 2 wins in a day in some of their action-packed schedule as they continue to make up games? What do you think?
I think the Cardinals are better than they played these past few series. They should. I would have said they could have caught up to the Cubs, like I said this last week, but after losing to the Pirates and then losing the series to the Indians, I just want them to focus on staying on that second spot in the division. I think, knowing our general manager, I don't really see any like blockbuster deals or anything like that. But I would want them to trade for a closer, and I think the best 2 possible options are now off the market, which were Trevor Rosenthal and Michael Givens. I also would have wanted them to trade for a left-handed reliever because Andrew Miller is on the injured list, and then our Nets' best lefty would be Genesis Cabrera. I would like them to go after Tony Watson from the Giants. He's the best lefty on the market right now. And I also maybe an outfield bat, starting Marte from the Diamondbacks, because our outfield offensive production has been pretty bad overall, and an outfielder like starting Marte, who's obviously a very good hitter, would turn that around. And I was thinking maybe one starting pitcher. It would have been really cool to get Mike Clevinger, but I really doubt that we have anything that the Indians would want or willing to trade for someone of that caliber. So I think the Cardinals are going to make some moves between now and the deadline tomorrow, and it's probably going to be in the bullpen.
All right, and so I think the Central, you may have the Cardinals looking at being a wild card team, but like we said, certainly not like some of the other divisions where we're talking about 4 teams who are in play. Anyone have any other thoughts on some of the less fortunate teams in the NL Central and what they might be selling?
I'm interested to see what the Reds do because they have Trevor Bauer, who I don't know. Some people think he might be traded. I doubt it. But and then the Brewers. Some people said Josh Hader might get traded. I doubt that too, especially because the Brewers have been doing a little better lately. They did lose to the Pirates today, but they won some series recently. I know that. I mean, right as of right now, there's no other Central teams getting into the playoffs, but I would be surprised if neither the Reds nor Brewers made it at the end of the season, because I think the Reds definitely have the talent, and the Brewers have the. I mean, they won last year. They made it last year and the year before, so I'd be a little surprised if neither of them made it, especially because that means like the Marlins or Giants or Rockies made it. So I don't think those teams should sell, but I mean, I'd be open to Josh Hader leaving the division, so that'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to maybe the biggest trade that we've seen thus far is that the Royals gave up Trevor Rosenthal, who's now, I suppose, San Diego's best closer they've ever had since Trevor Hoffman. Padres are clearly making a run for it. Gage, you're a Royals fan. How do you feel about Trevor Rosenthal? How do you feel about seeing him go? You think there's anyone else the Royals would be looking to trade?
I think that the Rosenthal trade was not good at all because of the simple fact that we have Ian Kennedy, who just got injured yesterday, who was supposed to be Trevor Rosenthal's quote-unquote replacement, and he has 0 saves, if I remember correctly.
He's got some shoes to fill, and clearly they're not doing it. You think the Royals will be trading anyone else? I'm sure there's probably some interest in their starting pitching. Most of those guys do seem to eat a lot of innings. I don't know if that's exactly what any playoff contenders are looking for, but they have something to offer, I think.
I personally think that we should trade some people, but I doubt that we will. We should be in a tanking mentality at this point.
Right.
Because, well, we ain't winning now.
Certainly at the bottom there. So as I said, the Padres are in a frenzy, and they seem to be willing to do whatever it takes to win the season. And you know what? I think, not to get too far off topic of the Padres, I think if the Yankees won or the Dodgers won the World Series this year, a lot of people would say, yeah, well, that's about what we expected. But if you end up with Padres winning the World Series, even if they do
Royals World Series.
If we look back on 2020 and say it's the Padres or it's the wild card team, people would say, yeah, that season doesn't count. But if it was a team you expected to win, it's like, oh, well, it happened anyway. But the point is, Padres are willing to do what it takes, it seems. What does everyone think of the moves the Padres have made and any moves that they will make? And should they be doing what they're doing?
Benny, I got to break in here because we're getting some news on a Padres deal right now. The Austin Nola trade turns out to be a 7-player deal. 4 players are going to the Mariners and 3 to the Padres. 3 of the players that are going to the Mariners are Luis Torrens, Taylor Trammell, who is a top prospect, and Ty France, who's an infielder for the Padres. So that tells me that they're getting a lot more than Austin Nola, because I don't think Austin Nola would warrant Taylor Trammell alone, plus Torrens and Ty France.
They just reported that the Padres are also getting reliever Austin Adams from the Mariners. So
that's pretty crazy and does not surprise me from Jerry Dipoto, the general manager of the Mariners, who is kind of known for wheeling and dealing, being willing to make some moves. That is a significant change to the rosters there. But he's the kind of guy who would do that thing. How do we feel about that trade and what it says about the Mariners?
They just want to trade a lot, basically. They seem that's.
Yeah, and that should be the strategy for the Mariners because they're definitely out of it this year. But they have a young core that could compete in a few years. So I think this is a good trade, especially I think Ty France is a good piece for them to get because he could produce for them in the next few years.
I think Taylor Trammell to the Mariners is very good for the Mariners. Honestly, if you're a Mariners fan, you have to be happy with the trade. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I think for both sides, it's kind of even. Taylor Trammell is obviously he's a very highly regarded prospect. So
okay, I got the last 2 names in the trade. Dan Altavilla is the other player going from the Mariners to the Padres.
Finally, he's gone. He's gone. He's gone. Yes, let's go.
And the Mariners are getting Andres. And the Mariners are getting Andres Munoz too, and he's a good prospect
Andres
for the
Munoz,
Padres.
if I remember,
Munoz
was
is
a
pretty
very
good.
nice prospect.
This is such a good trade for us. This is amazing.
This is a good
Like-
trade for both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
here's the thing: we got rid of Dan Altavilla. This is the greatest trade ever.
It makes
I
sense.
could not be prouder right now.
As you can tell, Kierganic is a Mariners fan.
Jerry DeProto, right, as I said, is not a risk-averse guy, but I do think the things that he does make sense.
He
Yeah.
does stuff like that's a rat. Oh my
I
god,
think,
I'm so happy.
I think AJ Preller and the Padres did overpay a bit here, but they're also showing that they are all in on this season, especially with all the moves they made earlier. I think if the Padres, they rumored to get Mike Clevenger, I think if with Mike Clevenger, the Padres are a World Series contender, in my opinion.
Here's the thing: I think the Padres are just trying to kind of clear out, they're kind of just trying to clear out and filter in because I don't think they really were happy with the score that they had, even if they were winning. And the fact that that was their fourth trade in 24 hours shows that.
I think
they're trying to filter out.
something interesting here is the Padres are going all in on this season, which a lot of people have said that this season might not even be legitimate anyway, even if they win the World Series. And they're trading away guys that could help them in the future. Honestly, if it were me, I'd probably just keep the team that they have right now since it's doing pretty good anyway, and then try to compete even at a higher level next year without having to trade away some of these prospects. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I'm surprised too. I expected a lot more teams to hold their cards close and look to next year. There's even the prospect, who knows, that the season gets canceled. Right? Imagine if there's a horrific outbreak in the playoffs and no one wins the World Series, and it's like, well, we made these moves expecting to be playing for the World Series, and no one is. So it is interesting seeing the trade deadline matter. Now, 10:35 as we record this is about 18 more hours to go. Another team we could talk about who may be selling pieces and where they could end up is the Diamondbacks. Archie Bradley is a closer that teams could be looking at. His ERA right now is 3.6. So on paper, he's not necessarily the greatest looking, but there are going to be some teams looking to contend who need someone like that. Sterling Marte in center field, who I always liked. And Connor, you had made a note about David Peralta. I hadn't seen anything about potentially him being traded, but I think he may be on a contract year making $7 million.
Actually, they did extend Peralta before this year, I believe. But I did see something that he could be traded. It's just a small rumor, though. I doubt it.
Okay. Connor, you think anyone will be leaving Arizona?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a trade that I thought would work out well, and that's Archie Bradley and Starling Marte and the package to the Cardinals because they need bullpen help and they need an outfield bat. I think that'd be cool. I think the Cardinals might have to give up a lot for that. I'm not sure. David Peralta, I don't see leaving. Robbie Ray is another one. I think he probably will leave. I think the Astros were rumored to have interest in him. I could definitely see that. And I think the Diamondbacks are right to sell because not only is their record not very good right now, they're just not playing very well, especially their offense. It's been really, it's been pretty rough at the beginning of this year. I mean, even Ketel Marte, his batting average is pretty good this year, but he's just not slugging. And so a lot of even their big guys, their big offensive guys aren't producing, so they're not going to compete this year.
Yeah, and Madison Bumgarner has had an ugly season. I never root to see anyone pitch poorly, but he has, and it's certainly not lived up to the contract that they gave him. He seems to be having velocity issues. Went on a DL. I saw that he was pitching simulated games, and I don't know if it's psychological, if it's mechanical, or if he's just lost it. Anyone have any thoughts on Bumgarner?
I think Bumgarner.
He's bad.
I think he's washed up at this. I know he's been great. He was very good in the postseason in his prime, and he's a legend for the Giants. But last year he showed signs of regression. his ERA was all right, but his metrics and other advanced stats showed he wasn't actually as good as his stats were saying. And then, he also played in the very large outfield in San Francisco. So moving to a different ballpark, maybe a hitter's ballpark, those fly ball outs could turn into home runs, and that could be part of his problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. On a brighter note for the Diamondbacks, they do have something good going. Zach Gallen has made 22 starts, allowing 3 earned runs or fewer at the start of his career, dating back to his debut with the Marlins last June. Aaron Celia last did it, also spanning another shortened season back in 93, 94 for the Red Sox. You guys like Zach Gallen? You think that he has a bright future? You think that he may be Cy Young candidate or what?
I want
I
John
love
to
Zach
talk
Gallen.
about Zach Gallen here.
Oh yeah, let's let John.
John, what do you have to say about Zach Gallen?
What is it for Zach Gallen? Well, I think it was. I really think the Marlins really did mess up. Yes, I get it. He was definitely really good. I mean, ever since that very first start against, I think he pitched against the Cardinals in his debut, last year for the Fish. He pitched really well. I do want to point out that the Marlins were looking to kind of balance their rotation between righties and lefties, and Zach Gallen was just one of those other ones of the many righties that they have, and unfortunately, they traded Gallen, but I do want to point out the pick that they got in return, Jazz Chisholm. I think he's going to be the replacement for Rojas. He could definitely, hit the ball well, and just keep your eye out for him. But Gallen, though, I wish the guy some good luck there in Arizona. He's got good stuff. I just want to point that out. But yeah, I do think the Marlins really did mess up on that one. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wish the guy good luck.
Yeah, I think that's some good points you made about the Marlins and their situation there. But I think I want to hear Hero talk about Gallen too, because let's not forget the Cardinals traded him away as well.
And that was a terrible trade, if I remember correctly. Like, genuinely horrible.
Right. Marcelo Zuna for Gallen, and gosh, who else was in that one?
Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, Sandy Alcantara too.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, well, see, I honestly think the Ozuna trade at the time it was justified. I think if Ozuna produced if he produced as good as he did in 2017 for those 2 years with the Cardinals, the trade would have been all right. And now looking back, obviously, Zach Gallen and Alcantara is like they're 2 ace level pitchers. But even without them, I think the Cardinals pitching staff is very strong. It's one of the team's strengths. So it doesn't sting as much, and we really did need an outfield bat back then, so it made sense. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Zach Gallen. I really hope he does well for the Diamondbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach Gallen. I talk about this way too much, but he was my NL Cy Young prediction at the beginning of the year because I want to go out on a limb, and
He still is mine.
Yeah, he's doing pretty good. He's in the top 20% of the league in expected batting average, expected WOBA, and expected slugging. So it's not like this is a fluke,
I will say his FIP is kind of high compared to his ERA, but I still think he's very good.
That's true. His FIP is high, and the reason for that is that he allows a good amount of homers, and FIP only takes into account homers, strikeouts, walks, hit by pitches. And so, but the reason that he only gives up homers is because people don't hit the ball hard. People don't hit the ball very well off him, but when they do, right, that's when they barrel it up. It's kind of like
They're not going to
Shane
hit you,
Bieber.
you're going to nuke it.
Right. That's kind of like Shane Bieber. If you look at Shane Bieber's metrics, he actually has a pretty high barrel percentage that he gives up. But then you look at how many guys he strikes out, and it's like, oh, well, the reason is because people hit it. The batters hit it so few amount of times that the barrel percentage is inflated. So that's why some of those metrics you have to take into account other things,
I will say Gallen, 50th percentile in barrel percentage, but also just he's 73rd percentile in hard hit percentage. So, and he's 84th percentile in xwOBA. So I think I wouldn't say he's a fluke or anything. Even last year, he was really good. So I think he's a good player despite the inflated fit.
Yeah, so rounding out the NL West, we have the Dodgers, who are not so surprisingly 16 games over 500. And John had just provided a link that the Indians are looking to trade Francisco Lindor. Yankees and Dodgers are the front runners. No big surprise there. The biggest spenders are willing to go for something like that. So the Dodgers are good and looking to get even better. We have the Rockies, who are a 500 team, who Connor wrote in his notes, can the Rockies buy their way into the postseason? That seems like a extreme statement. And the Giants are a couple games under 500, which is actually better than I expected from them. What do you think of the situation with these other NL West teams? What moves will they end up making, if any, or what moves should they be looking to make?
So the reason I say can the Rockies buy their way into the playoffs is, well, first of all, they got Michael Givens for just like way overpriced. They gave the Orioles 2 prospects, and it's Michael Givens. Like, I think he's got next year left on his contract, but like he had a pretty, I mean, he had an okay year last year, but he's obviously regressing. So I don't know why they traded so much for him. But the other thing they need is some kind of guy on the right side of their infield, because McMahon and Murphy and maybe Hampson, they're just not going to cut it. So I'd like to see them trade for maybe Howie Kendrick, Eric Thames, maybe Jonathan Scope. I have that as a prediction, Scope to the Rockies, because he would just destroy the ball at Coors. And then as far as the Dodgers go, I see the Dodgers are like top in the league and everything. So you think don't trade for anything, right? Just keep your team how it is. Then again, the Dodgers always make a move, and I think they might trade for Lance Lynn. They've had interest in him, and maybe a reliever like Matt Barnes as well.
All right, look into the Texas Rangers for some options. Anyone else have any thoughts on the NL West? If any changes will be made to any of those rosters?
Garrett Hampson. He has super high potential, but doesn't seem to do it in Coors or with the Rockies. I think that he should be traded. McMahon, I see, has high potential in Coors with his power. But yeah, I think the Rockies should make several moves.
I could see it happening, and the Rockies would be an interesting sort of outside team, not a team that a lot of people expected to be looking like a playoff team. And again,
Sure.
right now, I don't know at a 500 team if they are really. I suppose that would put them at 7th or so, 7 seed, right? Yeah, they would be behind the Padres in their own division. I don't think that they are going to exceed 3rd place in the NL West, but they could be one of those last couple of wild card teams.
I think there's in the National League there's maybe one team, maybe 2 teams that are out of it. I would say that's the Pirates and maybe the Diamondbacks. But I think in the National League West especially, we've seen that the Giants they've shown some upside. They've shown that they can contend and sneak into a wild card spot. So I think the Rockies also they kind of cooled off, but they are also a team that if they make some moves, they could also sneak into a wild card spot. So yeah.
Interesting. All right, so we can move on to our biggest blockbuster trade predictions. If anyone has anything they want to go out on a limb for with their own favorite team, or with some of the biggest names that they think will be moved. As we had said, the Mets are looking at a number of things. Something I'd seen earlier in terms of catching is Red Sox catcher Christian Vazquez. I would love to see them have someone more reliable for starting in that sense. And apparently, Red Sox are doing their homework, according to this report, on Mets minor leaguers. So that may still materialize in the next 18 hours. What do you think? Anyone have anything to say about their own team? What they think they will end up doing? Anything of note?
As I've said, I believe that we should trade people like Witt.
Mhm.
Or, well, not. Jorge Soler is a person that I think we should keep because he is the core of our hitting at this point. But Witt, he is getting on in age. I believe he's 30. He was the hit king last year, but his contract is so low, I think that we could take on somebody with a bit bigger contract that could do more at second base. That's just my thought on what the Royals should do.
I see. Connor, you've talked about what you think the Cubs should do. We have talked about someone like Francisco Lindor moving, but who do you think is the biggest name who has not come up yet who may end up moving?
Well, I'd say probably Clevenger and Lynn are the biggest ones. And I looked at both their numbers, and Clevenger is actually not doing too well at least as far as metrics. He's in the bottom half of the league, and basically all of his metrics, expected batting average, expected WOBA, expected slugging, hard hit percentage, exit velocity. So he's not looking too good, even though he has a lot of control. Lance Lynn is in the top half of the league in all of his numbers, and he'd probably yield a lighter return because of his contract and because of his age. So if I were not necessarily the Cubs, but a team looking for a starting pitcher, I would definitely go after Lynn rather than Clevenger. Also because Clevenger, I'm not sure if it would cause many problems, but obviously it did in the Indians that he broke protocol. It seemed like there was some chemistry that was severed there, and I wouldn't really want him on my team personally, even though he might do well. He might bring the rest of the team down. So that I guess that'd be my thoughts on those two. I don't think Lindor will be traded.
Yeah, definitely going to be some teams looking for starting pitching. The Braves are, as far as division leaders, certainly short in depth in the rotation. So, Hero, any predictions on a blockbuster trade?
For the Cardinals, I don't see any like selling or like buying any big names. I will say maybe it's as blockbuster as it gets this year. Someone like Jonathan Scope could be on the move. I don't think the Tigers are gonna try to win this year, so I'm gonna say Jonathan Scope's gonna get traded to some team. Probably I would have said the Athletics, but they got Tommy La Stella now, so it's not gonna be them. But maybe the White Sox. Um, by tomorrow, I think we're gonna see Kevin Pillar is gonna be on a new team, and we're gonna see Jonathan Scope and maybe Kevin Gausman from the Giants if they are willing to sell some players. But that's about it. And I think for the Rangers, Joey Gallo is not gonna be traded, but Lance Lynn, we could see him on a new team by the deadline tomorrow.
Could be. Yeah, Kuragana, go ahead. Tell us beyond Jerry's wacky moves so far. Not necessarily wacky, but daring moves
it's
so far.
Photo, nothing's wacky. But like I wouldn't be surprised because I don't think I don't think we have our answer at second base right now. So I think we might want to probably get some relief pitching for a different second baseman. I don't really know what we're going to do because this again is Devoto, but we could do really do a lot of things right now. I don't know, like
yeah.
we could probably get rid of D. Gordon at this.
Nobody's trading for D. Gordon.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna trade for Gordon. It would be great if they could get rid of him, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, like we're gonna try and get rid of him. Sure, that's what we're gonna try and do. we just don't
Maybe you
know
could like
because
throw him into a
I
package
don't think
deal or
Shed.
something.
I don't think Shed is the answer at second base. He hasn't been performing well,
I agree.
and I would say, our relief pitching is really, really weak. So maybe I would get rid of Shed, try and build up some relief pitching, and then what I would probably try and do is develop farm system because we have a really good farm system right now. So maybe get a rookie to fill in at second base, but our relief pitching is so god awful.
I think the biggest move that the Mariners are gonna make has already been made, and that would be
Well, of course,
getting
but,
Taylor Trammell
I
from the Padres.
wouldn't be surprised if we make any smaller moves because we're definitely going to deal that might be the biggest trade made this deadline, in terms of sheer players.
So I made a list of just some trades that I think will happen before the deadline. I just want to rattle them off quick, just so I have them on record. I can have proof. Go back. All right. So really quick.
I told you so. Yeah.
Tony Watson for Albert Almora, Mike Clevenger, and the Braves give up Christian Pache. Probably not going to happen. Maybe Drew Waters instead. Trevor Cahill to the Astros, Kevin Gausman to the Yankees, Andrelton Simmons to the Blue Jays, Richard Rodriguez to the Mets, Christian Vasquez to the Rays, Kevin Pillar to the Brewers, Greg Holland to the Brewers, Daniel Norris to the Reds, Mike Minor Yankees, Jonathan Scope Rockies, Nick Goody to the Marlins, and Shin-Soo Choo to the Indians. And then there were a few more, but I think I said them during the podcast. So, if you have any thoughts on those, you can go ahead.
I would say that Scope to the Rockies probably a safe bet. I don't know if it's going to happen, but the Tigers will. I doubt that they're going to try and do anything. So I would say that Scope is definitely going to get traded.
I got another one, and if you guys could hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it, John.
I got one that has to do with Miami and Kansas City. Miami's really desperately looking for a power bat. I want to see them go for. I know this sounds pretty, unrealistic, but you never know. It's a mock-up. I want to see them go for Jorge Soler. How about throw in Lewis Brinson, throw in Gerard Encarnacion, and throw in a good pitching arm to the Royals to send Soler to the Marlins. If the Marlins are legitimately trying to contend this October, something like that, What do you guys think?
I think that sounds like a good dream trade, but I don't think the Marlins will give up Soler.
Wait,
I'm sorry. I don't think the Royals will give up Soler.
I feel like they might keep.
The Marlins are going to be more focused maybe on the bullpen than outfield, but
definitely,
Soler would be a great trade for the Marlins. I don't know so much for the Royals if they're getting Lewis Brinson, but
All right, so like we said, the trade deadline is now 4 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time. So there's about 16 hours. I suspect we have not seen the end of shocking trades. We're going to close out on more of a fun note, something to get to know each other a little bit. So we could ask questions of each of you about a player that you loved as a kid who, in hindsight, statistically, really wasn't that great. Maybe someone you always thought of as clutch, and then you kind of grew up and realized that clutch is not necessarily a thing, or even a guy who had 12 home runs, but 3 of them you remember as being really remarkable, or you've looked up his WAR since then, and he was barely above a replacement player. So, Connor, Connor, tell me about one of your favorite Cubs, or even anyone around the league who you had an affection for, who you found
All right.
didn't
Okay.
match. Yeah.
Yeah, I got plenty, guys. Okay, so one that actually did produce, but I still loved him too much was Alfonso Soriano. He was like the Cubs' best player, but I mean, I guess he wasn't like an elite player. But I have like all these pictures of me wearing an Alfonso Soriano jersey when I was like 5 or something, and so I think that's one. But closer to what you're looking for, Brian LaHair. I don't know if any of you remember him. He made an All-Star game as a Cub in 2012, and he never played again. He had 16 homers that year, and he did okay. And I was like, let's go, Brian LaHair is the Cubs' future, and he never played after that. And then I guess one more. See, I think you kind of framed this question more according like in your mind here, because I know you're a lot older than us. You're just so you're a boomer, Benny, and we're all still kids, bro. So
Yeah, somebody's wearing that long ago. Also,
I definitely got a couple. I got a lot actually.
I wanted to check what year that was that Brian LaHair was an All-Star.
2012.
Putting it in, the first headline that comes up is from Bleacher Report, and it is titled, Cubs Brian LaHair is this year's most undeserving All-Star.
Oh, no.
I guess some guys that fit that category for me, it's going to be more like very recent, because I didn't really watch much, like follow baseball like as much as I do now when I was younger. But a guy, well, it's not really that I thought he was doing good or anything. I knew he was pretty bad, but I still really like him. Dexter Fowler, currently on the Cardinals. I think he's one of my favorite Cardinals, even though he hasn't lived up to his contract. He's just a great guy, and even if he's struggling, it's hard to hate on him. So Dexter Fowler would be that player for me, and someone who's more statistically like that, I would say Yadier Molina, because you see him, like highlights of him coming up in clutch spots, but if you look at the stats that would theoretically define clutch, he would underperform in those situations. But yeah, those are my two players.
Cool. Pure Organic, tell me about some Mariners you loved as a kid.
I don't know why I just loved Mike Senior so much, because he was never great. Like, he was good. He was.
Say that again. You broke up when you said his name.
I don't know why I loved Mike Senior so much, but like, because he was good, but he was never just great. He was never a great, like an amazing player. But I would always watch him, and he was never. I think I just kind of stand catcher, like, a lot.
It's a tough position to play, and you feel for them.
Because his career batting average is god awful. It was so bad. But he filled flat for the Mariners, and I don't think I really cared about winning. Because when I was a little bit younger, I would watch games and I'm like, ooh, epic baseball, and I just kind of like the name Mike Zunino. I don't know why I stand this guy so much, because he was not good. But I would try and search for highlights of him, and I would barely find anything.
Yeah. So I think our other guests have departed. John,
I got one.
Back. I would love to hear yours, John.
Well, growing up as a baseball fan, I always grew up watching Florida sports, and there's two. I got Tampa Bay and I got Miami. Now for Tampa Bay, for some reason, I just absolutely love Desmond Jennings. I don't know, that guy just stood up to me. It's a name I haven't heard in years, but Desmond Jennings is just a lot of fun to watch. And for the Marlins, now this one is interesting. This one has an interesting story. It's a guy named Adam Greenberg. He first played for the Cubs 2005, and in a game against the Marlins, he got beamed to the head and did not see baseball until 2012. Signed a one-day deal with the Marlins, came in to face R.A. Dickey, who was the upcoming, the defending Cy Young Award winner, because 2012 for the New York Mets. And I was at that game, and I remember everybody stood up and they gave a standing ovation, because you kind of feel bad for the guy. Come on, come over to the majors, get beaten in your first career at bat, and they gave him a standing ovation. Sadly, he struck out, never came back to the majors, absolutely disappeared. But, it's one of those guys where you grow up and it just gives you another reason to love baseball.
Yeah, when you said his name, I remember that was ugly, and you feel for him. You kind of wonder what could have been, right? If that hadn't happened.
Right, yeah.
So as for mine, as you said, I'm a little bit older than some of you guys. When I was a kid in the 2000s, I had so many black Mets jerseys, and I had 4 of them who were number 44. That was Jay Payton, Mike Cameron, and Lastings Millage, all outfielders who had a little bit of a flashy side to them. Jay Payton was on the 2000 team and started almost every game, was serviceable. Mike Cameron, I think people probably remember better as a Mariner. I don't think his years with the Mets, 2005 or 2006 or so, were that great. And then Lastings Millage, just, I don't know if I was continuing the tradition there, but I don't think he started more than like 60 games for a couple of seasons. And then after that, these weren't the only Mets to wear 44, but Jason Bay was the next one, and that is more recent. Some of you guys may remember. That is a man with a plagued career, and I have not purchased a number 44 jersey since Jason Bay. So, sorry, who was going to say something about one of those?
Yo, Mike Cameron was like a long... Yo, that's some nostalgia right there.
I was gonna say Mike Cameron. He was actually pretty solid for the Mets in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he had that one good year with the Mets. So
yeah, that was 2004. His OPS was 798. So yeah, he was certainly serviceable. But not the kind of guy you'd probably expect to see someone at the stadium wearing a jersey of.
True.
So, all right, I think we covered a lot of ground here. I think we're all looking forward to seeing if some really crazy trades happen. Anyone have any closing thoughts?
Set your alarm tomorrow. Get up early. Don't miss a trade.
Oh my god.
but I'm gonna wake up.
We got Taylor Trammell.
I'm gonna wake up at like
Dude,
10 a.m. to see. I'm gonna see Mike Trout to the Baltimore Orioles or something like that.
Yeah, definitely, hero.
All right, this has been
Orioles.
This has been fun. This has been another episode of MLB After Hours. I look forward to doing this again next week, and we will see a sort of post-mortem, what trades were made, and what we are assessing teams looking like going into the final. It may only be about 2 weeks of the season at that point. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a good night.
What?
Oh, did you end it? I feel like we still have so much to talk about, but we ran out of time.
It was an hour and a half. So I don't know if we can aim to go shorter than that while covering every team, but I think it went good.
Bro, what if
The
Tony's
Padres
AFK?
got fleeced. The Padres. Let's go.
Did Tony even?
I don't know.
Did Tony even end it?
Dude, he might be AFK. All right, if we're still on.
Alright, well, we might
how
as
you
well
guys
keep
doing?
talking.
All right, we're still on right now, I guess.
Everyone
happens
hit
if-
Tony.
What happens if we kick Tony?
Well, it's still gonna be
Is anyone
recorded,
here?
but it's
Oh, that's
Dude,
true.
That's all right, dude. We just keep talking. All right, we got more to talk about. Don't even worry
All right,
about
go
it.
ahead.
More. Okay.
All right.
This has been the podcast.
This is real MLB After Hours. It's the After Hours after the hours of the podcast. All right.
It's after our reception.
You are in the 10th
After-
inning of
after.
MLB After Hours.
How did the Braves and Phillies game end up anyway?
It's 12-8 Braves right now. Or no, is it 12-9? Oh, it's 12-10.
It's 12-10. Oh, wow. And
My alarm.
Okay. Hey, I never got to talk about a few players that I really like. Okay.
go on.
I'll just go ahead and list them off. Teoscar Hernandez. Gotta love him. 98th percentile in exit velo, 99th percentile in hard hit, 96th percentile in barrel percentage. He's so good this year. He's going to lead the league in homers. Anthony Santander. Here's something I learned about him. Not only does he just get a bunch of RBIs for the Orioles, he actually is really good defensively. He's in the 98th percentile for outfielder jump, and he has 0.5 DWAR. And so I appreciate good defenders. So that's good to hear about Anthony Santander. And then Jake Cronenworth, Rookie of the Year. He has a 392 expected batting average, which is first in the majors. And he's also, this is the other thing, is that Jake Cronenworth is also really fast. He's top 10% in the league in sprint speed. One more, Max Fried. He's pitching so well right now. He's carrying the Braves. He's a 1.35 ERA. He's 96th percentile and exit velo given up, and top 10% in xWOBA and x slugging. And sorry if I list off too many metrics. I like looking at the metrics.
No, you're good. How about Vlad Jr.? I think he's been getting going lately. He's been hitting better for the Blue Jays, and they really needed that out of him. With Bo Bichette going down, his OPS is above 800 now. His batting average is 270 now. So he's been picking it up lately, and that's good to see because I'm a big Vlad Guerrero Jr. fan.
That's interesting. I like Bo Bichette better. Not necessarily root for him more, but I think he will be better. But that is true. Vlad Guerrero's hitting really well, and I think part of that is where he plays, because Salem Field, is playing so much in favor of the hitters. It's crazy how much of a hitter's park it is.
That's true.
It really is, and Toronto seems to have some magic there, and I'm glad that they find themselves at home, as we said last time.
But also,
bouncing around was not probably not good for the psyche.
Also, if you look at Vlad Jr.'s metrics, though, he's among the top in the league in exit velo and hard hit percentage, which we knew he could hit the ball hard, and we know he has a good eye. His xWOBA is it's been going up from what it was before, so I guess obviously the field has been a big advantage for him, but it could also be a sign of him making adjustments.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people look at exit velo and hard hit percentage when they're scouting out guys nowadays, because everyone that comes up, look at Luis Robert. He's top 10% in exit velo. But the other thing is that Luis Robert is bottom 10% in strikeout percentage and in whiff percentage. So I think these teams, you expect that from a rookie, but they called him the next Mike Trout, and I really don't see it because he swings at everything.
That's also one reason why I wanted to disagree with you when you say Bo Bichette could turn out better than Vlad Jr. I just think Vlad Jr. has a really good eye. He has a lot of power, as we've seen, and he also has good bat to ball skills. So I just think he's gonna develop to a more pure hitter. And Bo Bichette is obviously still gonna be very good. I just think Vlad is gonna surpass him when it comes to hitting.
Yeah, so Vlad is probably used to being compared to his father a lot. He is of course, Vlad Guerrero had played for the Expos, had played for the Angels. He has 449 career home runs. We think that Junior will be above or below that.
I don't really
to
see
top
him.
50 years.
I don't really see him as a power hitter. I know he hits the ball hard, but he's not a home run hitter like per se. So I would think. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, if he gets the chance to play for that long, then maybe.
See, that's interesting because in my mind, Guerrero is a power hitter, and Bichette's more of that pure hitter you were talking about. But it could obviously turn out differently. But I just think, I mean, I hope not, but I could see Guerrero getting corrupted by the launch angle thing, and just trying to hit everything in the air, and then he turns into this guy that strikes out a lot but hits a lot of homers. But to answer Benny's question, I think he'll be below his father's home run mark. I think he'll get close, but below it.
Yeah, Guerrero looks like he's built to hit home runs, and maybe it doesn't do it as much as he looks like. The Blue Jays are a chunky team, are they not? Yeah, Rowdy Tellez. They picked a Vogelback, who's a huge guy. If there were any team who had to field a football team, maybe the Blue Jays would look the best at that.
And the Yankees, they have some huge players too, like obviously Judge and Stanton, but DJ LeMahieu was a huge guy too.
Yeah, and Aroldis is ripped since he came back, right?
Aroldis Chapman is ripped.
Yeah.
So any more topics?
We got some interference coming in. Who's that? I don't know. When I walk away.
Mic quality issues.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess we're just gonna be here until Tony shows up, so I guess we should just keep talking.
Dude, I got more to talk about. Here's something. The Dodgers' run differential is plus 90, and the second highest in the MLB would be the White Sox plus 42. So basically, I never said this during the podcast, but I just want to say I think the Dodgers will easily win the World Series this year. I think as long as they get past the first round, they will easily win the World Series.
Yeah, Connor, I forgot. That was one thing that I think we didn't touch, was that you had a note about the Dodgers setting a record for the number of home runs in a month. Obviously, as we had said, there's this huge fall, and lots of teams playing. I think the Padres and White Sox are also hitting home runs like crazy. But you want to say something more about?
Well, I think the funny thing about that is, like, sometimes you'll see that, like, the Twins have the most home runs and whatever, and you'll be like, yeah, Nelson Cruz and maybe Eddie Rosario and Max Kepler or whatever. The Dodgers, even though they do have those kind of standout guys, the guys that hit home runs for them this month, it's not just Mookie and Bellinger. Honestly, they didn't even have that many of them, especially, like, Bellinger just picked it up now at the end of the month. They're getting production from every single spot in their lineup, and they always do. It's about time that the Dodgers finally win the World Series, and this is the most ahead they've been of the rest of the league ever. If they don't win the World Series, it's going to be pretty sad because this is their year.
I think the Dodgers are they're the only team that is complete. Like, you can't really find a hole on their team.
That's
but
exactly right.
Yeah, and their coaching staff has to be doing something right because they are getting production out of everyone.
Yep.
But if they don't, I feel like if they don't win this year, I don't see Dave Roberts staying there. Because that is a team that, with all their talent, they just can't, they can't lose the World talent.
Right. You could see something happening like what happened to Joe Girardi. Like, they lost in Game 7 of the ALCS to the Astros, and then he gets fired. Okay, there's a lot of pressure in New York with their managers, and it's the same kind of in Los Angeles. So I think Kurganic's right. If Dave Roberts is a little bit in danger. I know they signed him to some kind of extension, so maybe not this year, but they got to win a World Series soon. So he needs to be careful.
I think Dave Roberts, he's a pretty good manager. I think he gets a bad rep because of his players' failures in the postseason.
Yeah,
but
I think that's true.
He's a good manager, I think.
I would love if we got Dave Roberts, got anything to really get rid of Dubai.
Yes, Scott's service is probably one of the worst managers in the MLB,
I
right next to
think
Gabe Kapler.
God,
And it's
he
funny
is
because
so-
Gabe Kapler, the Giants are actually doing okay this year, but I swear if you watch their games, he always puts in the wrong reliever or tries to take out a reliever too soon. I don't know if you remember that. He tried to take out a pitcher after he only faced 2 batters.
Yeah,
Maybe if Bruce Bochy retired a year later, they would have been right behind the Padres right now.
yeah. We had talked. We did not choose our managers of the year, but we talked a little about how that voting as well. Basically, did you overperform or did you underperform? And Dodgers spending like what, probably over 200, maybe 210, 215 million on salary this year. It's like, well, if you're not accomplishing World Series type competition at that, given that sort of talent pool, and of course, like last year, there were a lot of injuries, but they're still paying for it. So yeah, I think if Dave Roberts doesn't get them there, it's like where do they go next? And I think and I'm always been a Braves hater, but Snitker is a manager who's been given a great team, and I don't think he can manage his way out of a paper bag. He makes a lot of head scratching pitching changes and stuff like that, and that's probably why the Braves are in the situation where they are now, where they had a 10-run second inning and are up against the tying run at bat right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be another case where you blame a manager for his failures. Obviously, there's some, for a pitcher. Sorry, you blame a manager for his players' failures, but I think some of that is on Snicker. But I also think that the Braves bullpen, it's supposed to perform well. Like their bullpen, if you look at it, I mean, Shane Green, Mark Melanson, Luke Jackson, they're all supposed to be performing well, and some of them are, but I think you got to put some of the blame on them. I mean, it's the same thing with Kimbrel, right? Oh, we put in Kimbrel, and everyone yells at David Ross. Okay, yeah, he probably shouldn't have put in Kimbrel, but also Kimbrel's got to step it up at some point, and you can't just not put him in at all. You're paying the guy, and unless you want to just throw that contract down, throw all the money down the drain, you got to have him step it up at some point.
Well, I agree with you in putting him in the game at some point. I don't know if putting him in high leverage situations is the way to do it because he's proven that he isn't good in those spots. So maybe use him as a middle reliever and see if that works out for him.
Yeah, I
And then
think they probably have like a problem with that, like thinking we're paying this guy 40 something million just to be a middle reliever. But I think that's kind
but
of a fallacy. Like, oh, we have to pitch him in high leverage situations because we're paying him. So I think you're right.
Yeah, and I think that there is some pressure from a front office to do that sort of thing. I always felt that way with the Mets for a long time, just generally paying guys, got to play them. Like,
that's why
yeah,
Chris Davis got on the lineup every time last year.
yeah.
I'm wondering if we should do manager of the year for the league right now.
If you got someone you want to throw out, sure.
I'm gonna throw out because I kind of think the unanimous pick might be Dave Roberts, but I'm gonna throw out Bob Melvin of Oakland A's. He's done a phenomenal job this year. And they kind of
Remember, they do manager of the year for both leagues, so Melvin and Roberts could both win it.
Yeah, I would. Good point. I would probably say Melvin and Roberts. Roberts,
I think
because with that talent, I kind of thought the Dodgers might have crashed and burned this year just because of chemistry wise, but everything kind of gone well, and they're just in balance over everyone in the league right now. So I'd kind of put him at unanimous for NL for the year, and I would say that Bob Melvin for the AL manager of the year just because I thought the A's were going to be below 500 this year. I just didn't think that they would be good. And all
I
of a
think for the
sudden
American League, it's
everything
definitely
kind of just been turned
oh,
around.
God. I think in the American League it would definitely be Kevin Cash, just because going against the Yankees in the division and he's in the lead right now. Like if the Rays end up winning that division, there's no doubt it's gonna go to Kevin Cash. And
I'm in
for the
agreement.
National League,
Yeah, Kevin
for the
Cash is going to
National
get a
League,
lot of credit for right working with a shoestring budget and a small market. The Rays have managed to set that up well, but definitely if they're winning the AL East, that's the story there. I think it's Cash for sure.
I think I agree with you guys that it probably should be Cash if they beat out the Yankees for the division title, but I honestly think that it'll be Ricky Renteria just because the White Sox are going to win the AL Central. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think they'll win it, and if they do, I think everyone's going to be like, "Oh, White Sox are back in the playoffs. Ricky Renteria led them to the division title," and they'll probably vote for him. And I think in the NL, sorry Roberts, but I think Jace Tingler's got this one easy. First year
see,
manager, and he's got the Padres 6 games over 500 right now. They'll probably go pretty far in the playoffs, but that they don't take that into account. But obviously, they've got a great team. I think Tingler's got it easy.
I was gonna say Tingler would be my favorite to be the NL Manager of the Year, but the whole Tatis situation, it gave him a lot of backlash. So I don't know. I don't know if the voters are gonna take that into effect. But for me personally, I wouldn't put him as my National League Manager of the Year. I would say David Ross or Dave Roberts would be.
That's interesting that you say the Tatis situation because I expect the people that vote on this. I mean, I don't know the people. I don't know the specific people that vote on it, but I know the types of people that vote for it, and I would expect them to be on Tatis's side, and I guess to an extent Tingler's side. So I don't think that would affect that too much. And then what you say, David Ross. It's just because I'm a Cubs fan. I know it is, but he gets a lot of backlash for
Yeah,
these Kimbrel
I
decisions.
understand that, but like from, let's say, just the voters in general, just looking at the season, the Cubs are on top right now. The division was open to 4 teams, and then if he comes out on top as a rookie manager, a lot of people are gonna see that and think,
Yeah,
yeah, he's
It,
the
yeah,
manager.
it left a bad taste in my mouth that Tingler did not stand up for his player, or that's how it looked after the fact. Maybe in the moment he didn't even think that he was piling on. But I think that will be forgotten in time unless you have some situation where like Tatis has an attitude clash. I think both of them have moved on from it. So I don't think that will factor in heavily unless you have some kind of situation where you're generating headlines for all the wrong reasons.
I have a sleeper pick for manager of the year. I'm a big believer in the Reds. I don't think their record really shows how good they are, and I think that not only will they make the playoffs, but I think they'll probably take that 2 spot away from the Cardinals. And I think if they do, David Bell, even though a lot of people don't like him, I think he's
He's
got
not
a
a good
chance.
manager at all.
I know you say
I
that, but I don't think he's. I think if they turn the season around, he might get the votes like Dave Martinez last year.
I don't know how in the when I said when you said sleeper pick, I didn't think you meant coma pick. 'Cause, like
No. I gotta be honest with you guys. The Reds. Okay. Think about it like this: if at the beginning of the year, right, go back to the beginning of the year. Let's say the Reds are off to a good start and they win the division. Because does David Bell have a chance to win it? Probably, right? So if they turn the season around and they get into second, maybe even first place, who knows about the Cubs, right? I don't see what would, if anything, that would help them even more because they love managers that turn the season around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I
manager of
just
the year
think
voting is just kind of bad.
a lot of the reason for the Reds' early struggles has been because of him. I think his bullpen management is really terrible.
I don't
So I don't.
see. I know a lot of people say that, but I mean, the guys that have not been doing well, like, you know what? Let me go pull up the Reds stats right now. Okay, he's like, take someone like Pedro Strop. He was supposed to be used as kind of like a short relief setup man, and then he did poorly. I don't know if he used him wrong. I don't think he did. I mean, Michael Lorenzen is another one. What the heck is he doing? Like, maybe it's the front office for keeping him up. Okay, he's using Lucas Sims right. Okay, he's doing really good. Amir Garrett's doing good. But Raisel Iglesias, come on, Raisel Iglesias is the Kimbrel of the team. He goes out there, he has, where's blown save? He's only converted on 4 saves in 9 and 2/3 innings pitched. Okay, his ERA is 5.59. I don't. What else are you gonna do? You just gonna throw TJ Antone the whole time just because he's good? I don't know. Like, David Bell only has so much to work with. And that's the other thing, is that the Reds need bullpen help at the deadline. If they got bullpen help, maybe they could go somewhere.
I could see them getting Greg Holland from the Royals.
I could too.
So we should note that the Braves did hang on and win, so they are now 19-14. That game did end 12-10. And something at first I disliked, and I definitely think they're crazy, but those Phillies fans who stand outside, they showed towards the end of the game, people were banging wiffle ball bats on like parking stanchions, and I don't know.
The air horns?
Yeah, that started right. That some teams were getting pissed that they were blowing the air horns, which generally you can't bring into games. And then I think the Yankees were complaining that they were cheering too much and it was getting into their heads. That was early on, and that probably only encouraged people. So if you live in the neighborhood and you come out, what do you think of these crazy Phillies fans?
You know, that's funny because I thought I liked it at first, like, you know, because they're adding sounds to the games. Kind of miss it from last year, and maybe they got a little too rowdy at some points. But as long as they keep it under control, I'm fine with it. I like the sounds.
I think it's funny that you mentioned the Yankees because their fans are known to be getting into the team's heads and just being rowdy in general. So
yeah, absolutely. The bleacher creatures have a history of problematic behavior towards outfielders. So yeah, it's a little bit of a goes around, comes around situation. But this season, it's just the oddity of if your team happens to have an outfield wall that's open to a public-facing street, you may be inviting some folks to show up.
I guess that's home field advantage this year.
Or something like it, yeah.
Oh, you know, that's another thing we didn't even talk about is they're talking about the bubbles for the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Houston and Arlington, and then San Diego and Los Angeles for the AL.
Yeah.
Hero, what do you think? Does that like get rid of home field advantage purposes in the playoffs, basically?
I was thinking that, like, the seating, when it comes to home field advantage, I think it removes that because of the bubble. I don't really know if the bubble is necessary. I know it's to prevent an outbreak in the playoffs that would cause like a big pause of playoff series and games, but I guess that's more important than actual home field advantage. So I guess if they have to do it, then I'm not against it. I don't know how I feel about, you know, Globe Life Field being the World Series field, but
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think Globe Life Field. This is just personal, but Globe Life Field and Minute Maid Park both are like kind of depressing without fans because they're playing indoor and it just doesn't seem like a baseball atmosphere, you know. So I wouldn't really like that, especially at being a fan of an NL team having to play at Houston and Texas. But if it's gonna keep the players safe and keep the season going at it, you know, without canceling games, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, I think they're also concerned about if they have to, especially if they have to push things off a week or something. Could you imagine playing playoff games in freezing rain in New York? Like, if you move it somewhere south, especially places with roofs, you don't have to worry about that. So I think there's an advantage in that too. Although, personally, I will say I'm against it. I kind of like that baseball has this quirky culture of when team owners were basically like circus guys, like Bill Vecca and whoever, and the way you set up the dimensions was based on your local guys, and now it's a business decision, and it seems like the Mets they moved the fences after a couple of years at Citi Field to adjust things, but you know your park and you know how you hitting it, and you build your team based on your park. You may be more of a team without fly ball hitters because you play in a place like Philadelphia. Not that the Phillies are likely to be, doing something. I don't know where I'm going with that. The point is, when you if you go down to Arlington or something, all of a sudden you're a different team.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm not a big fan of that, but again, this season's different for everything. Like, I'm not a big fan of the extra inning rule, the 7 inning games, but anything to make the season happen, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, first of all, I think I doubt that would happen, but just imagine if like the other players just boycotted playing in Houston because of what the Astros did. If the Astros made the playoff, because like I could see that happening just because it's the MLB. It, of course, it won't, but like, imagine if like they just didn't, like they said, we're not playing. We don't find it safe here. We don't want to play here.
I don't think that's.
Well, hold on. I think that part of the reason that the NL would be playing at two AL stadiums is to.
Oh, the NL is playing at those
Yeah.
stadiums? Okay, then,
Yeah.
then it's fine.
Yeah.
And which is kind of funny because what's going to happen is the Astros are going to be playing at Dodger Stadium against other teams. So I don't know if they're going to pipe in the booing, though. I don't know.
I feel like they should
Type
have
in the
let
trash
teams.
cans.
Yeah, there was
Could've
like
let teams
After
use,
every out, the Dodgers just like put the trash cans in.
Yeah, that first Saturday game that they had the app with the cheering and booing, I played around with it, and I have not thought about it since. Has anyone been a loyal app
No.
user?
I've heard of that. I didn't even know how it works. Like how exactly.
Yeah, everyone's so delayed on their streams. I doubt that it works well, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit like when you ever watch a Facebook live stream where they have the hearts or the likes flying
Yeah, it's
across.
like that.
Yeah.
Yo, so we got Alex on here, Dodgers fan for the very end of the podcast. Alex, are you there? Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us about the Dodgers? We were talking about how the Dodgers have to win the World Series this year because they're the best team and it's their year, and it'd be sad if they didn't. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely their year. The record shows for it. 16 games above 500. They got a 90+ run differential. Mainly, it's their starting pitching that's kind of like the decipher whether we'll win or not. Because our offense looks good, bullpen looks good. It's just their starting pitching.
You think they should? Go ahead, Hero.
The Dodgers have been to the World Series in 2017, 2018, and fans want to win, but it's a 60-game season with a weird playoff format. Would you put value into the World Series win this year, or?
I mean, yeah, probably. Considering that you play more, there's an additional round. There's kind of more at stake, so being able to win all 4 rounds is pretty special.
Do you think that the reason that they lost the 2017-18 World Series is because the other team cheated?
Well, I think in 17 it was pretty obvious. Even if you look at Game 5 stats, that the Astros were throwing like 52 breaking balls or at least off-speed pitches, and they did not swing and miss at any of them. And for 2018, I think it's just the Red Sox was just a better team. No one was gonna beat them. They were like 11-3 that postseason run. So yeah.
Yeah. That one more question about the Dodgers. Do you think they should go after a starting pitcher like Lance Lynn, maybe, even if it costs them a few prospects?
I don't know. I feel like they should go someone that's kind of like below the radar that doesn't cost too much.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. Somebody like Tommy Malone that the Braves got.
Yeah, just someone.
Kevin Gausman.
Kevin Gausman, maybe, yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if the Giants are gonna be willing to trade with the Dodgers though.
Ooh, good point.
Yeah.
So I guess we're wrapping up here.
Benny?
Are we wrapping up here?
Yeah, I guess.
I think we still don't have Tony. I don't have
Tony's-
anything.
Tony's here, I think.
Oh, okay.
We should ping him just to make sure.
No, he just talked.
Yep. All right.
All right. This has been the 10th, 11th, and 12th inning of the MLB After Hours podcast. Thank you for those of you who listen into the second hour. It has been fun, and we will be back next week to talk about trades and where teams stand at that point of the season. Have a good night, everyone.